All right. Well, welcome to day 7 of International Nature Journaling Week. Thank you, Bethan, for that introduction. Before I start, I just want to thank everyone on behalf of the small team here. We're supporting Bethan to create this week-long celebration of a love of nature and nature journaling and bringing it internationally around the world. And I'm so excited to see so many of you sharing on social media, but also our new platform that we've been using, Padlet, so that we can all share and anyone can go and view it. And Karina will put that link in there at some point during the meeting. And so that you can check it out if you haven't seen it already. So you don't have to be on Facebook or Instagram or have an account. You can just hop on there and you can take a look at what people from around the world have been posting on each day of the week. And we'll have that up there so you can visit it at any time. You can come to the videos and rewatch or be re-inspired. Even the past years are on the website. So naturejournalingweek.com has so many wonderful resources. So I invite all of you to go and check that out. And then we also have a donation link as well. So if you are enjoying and receiving a lot of lots of new ideas and excitement and joy through the days that we've put together for everyone, you can go on over and share your love with us, and we'd be really grateful. We need that to make the operating expenses and all the behind the scenes things keep running. So we really appreciate everyone's help. Okay, all right. So my name is Melinda Nakagawa of Spark in Nature, and I am a nature connection mentor and nature journaling teacher, and I'm really excited to be able to share this topic with you today. It really is something that's near and dear to my heart, speaking from the heart. And I'm going to share a few slides in the beginning, just because I know sometimes for me, seeing something visual is helpful. So let me just go over to my slides and then let's see. And then Bethan, you can let me know if at any time something is blocking the view. Sometimes there's like a box or something that might pop up. So you can just let me know. Okay, and share my screen. All right, can you see my slide, Bethan? All right, okay, so opening your heart to connect with nature. So I'd love to welcome everyone who's here live. And if you would go down to the chat and let us know what country or state, if you have states in your country, state and country you're joining us from, and also think about something in nature that you are grateful for. So I know we're spanning lots of time zones around the world, and different climates. So it'd be really cool to hear what is something in nature that you're grateful for right now. And then I'm just going to give a moment for everyone to go down to the bottom and write down where you are and what you are grateful for. And I'm going to do the same too. We'll just add that to the chat. All right, and if you've typed your little message in there where you're from and something you're grateful for nature, would love to, everyone can go and check that out. So we have folks from Connecticut, US, Karina in Canada, Southern Eastern Sierra in California, Wisconsin, Ayoka from Germany. Thank you for being here. It's so late over there. We've got Arkansas to New York to California in the US. Bethan's in Australia. Hi from Ireland. Oh my goodness, midnight. So glad you're here. So let's see, we have New York and some gratitudes, befriending trees, Valerie, birds, a chilly morning, but at least not raining. Sounds like someone who's had lots of rain. Let's see, Karina's grateful for nature's resilience. Yes, there's a lot of fires going on in Canada, so we can see resilience going on. South Australia, Emma, welcome. Emma is grateful for the family of black-shouldered kites close by. Jill's grateful for summer. Bethan is in Brisbane, Australia. She's grateful for yellow color in winter. Oh, the wattle flowers. Yeah, sunrises and sunsets, cool weather. I'm really grateful for sunshine here in sunny California. We've had so many cloudy days. I was getting really antsy to get out from under the clouds and just really needed some sunshine. It's been really tough this week, so I'm really glad the sun came out. Oh, this is wonderful. So we're filtering in a lot more gratitudes. Welcome everyone from around the world. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and start with this topic. Let's see if we get the slides going. So let's see here. All right. So we're here to get deeper awareness and connection to nature. And we've been doing this all week with visiting with all of our senses. And the five senses, sight, smell, hearing, sound, tasting, touching, the ones that we learned about when we were in grade school or even younger, but then adding things like, looking at movement and today looking at the heart. And I have a background in science. And even though I have been trained to look at nature through a scientific lens, I also love to create and do drawings and paintings, and also just allowing myself to open to nature's wonder through heartfelt emotion and being attuned to what's happening. So I like bridging all of those worlds together to cultivate wonder and curiosity. And we've been learning this week that we can see the world with our senses, but there's more than that. And I think Bethan touched on it in one of the videos that we have, the sense of proprioception, which is our bodies, awareness of our bodies in space, right? Like we can move our limbs without looking. We know where those limbs are. We have a sense of hunger or thirst, and sense of balance, different kinds of senses. There's so many senses that we don't normally talk about. But today we're going to focus on one that maybe we don't use so much when we're talking about something that's, kind of a science focus or ecology focus. But what I'm wanting to share is that you can put in your nature journal whatever it is that you are kind of, wanting to put in there. So if I was doing scientific research, I might not be putting my heartfelt emotions and feelings and intuition in there. But in my nature journal, it's this beautiful place where I can put whatever comes up to the surface and whatever is inspired in that moment. So what does it mean to use our heart? And I kind of describe it as being aware of how we are feeling, like an emotional state or just feelings or thoughts that are inspired by the nature that we are experiencing or the place that we're experiencing. And these might also be just thoughts that come up, ideas. And so, I would ask, like, what feelings might you feel? So this week you've gone out into nature and you were, stop my share for a moment so I can see everybody. You were experiencing nature through your senses, but what have you felt? Was there something that you felt in nature this week And I would love for you to share in the chat, like go down to the chat, because I'm just really curious to see what everyone was feeling, or if you were aware of an emotion, and maybe you weren't aware, and that's okay too. But if we go over to the chat, we'll take a look and see like what kinds of feelings kind of came up, or emotions that did you feel when you were out in nature. And if you weren't really aware of that, go on over to the chat and see like what are other people sharing, and that might kind of stimulate some ideas or memories of what you were seeing this week. And I'm just going to give a moment for folks to just reflect on your week, and maybe there's one or two or more emotions or feelings about being in nature. And there's no wrong answer, so just pop in whatever comes up. So I'm seeing here, actually, maybe I'll just give just another minute here, and I'm going to type something, and maybe Bethan, would you like to read off some of the feelings that some folks have been feeling?
Yeah, so a lot of people have been feeling peace, connection. I love this one, comforted and held. Belonging, serendipity, oneness, joy, peace, connection, love, curiosity, tranquility. There's some beautiful words, nostalgia, awe is such a wonderful feeling,
Yeah.
and we can find awe in small places. It doesn't have to be in the Grand Canyon or somewhere grand like that. It can be, pardon me, it can be awe at something very small. Affection, peace, replenishment. Yeah. Surprise. I love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so these are all really great words that I think we can all take note. So if we feel like, oh, I'm not really paying attention to how I feel when I'm sitting with this flower or with this tree, maybe these words might kind of stimulate, these are kinds of things that we could pay attention to. Oh, thrill. There's someone who was thrilled to hear the birds sing in the summer rain. Yes, that's wonderful. Okay, I'm going to go back to my screen, my slide. So yeah, we already have a lot of words that we use in describing what we're sensing with the heart. We'll do another exercise in a minute, but I wanted to shift over to now, how do we connect to nature with the heart? Some of you here or watching the recording might wonder, like, what does that mean to connect with the heart? What does it mean to look at nature with the lens through the heart? What does the heart have anything to do with this? And I put a few pictures of hearts because that's one of my favorite things to do, is actually look for hearts in nature. And I like to take photos of it. So I don't know if anyone else likes to find those little treasures in there. Yeah, I see thumbs up there. But yeah, this is actually one way that you can look in nature, right? Let's just be paying attention to say, ooh, what can I find that looks like a heart shape in nature? This is how to connect. Okay, so how to connect with nature, and here's like a little bulleted list of how I generally go and connect with nature. And it's, first of all, we're in such a fast-paced world that I think that downshifting our gears, like the speed at which we are moving through the world, and slowing down. You don't have to slow down or stop to connect with your heart, but it's helpful because we're so distracted by the speed and the doing of of the rest of the world. So if we can shift gears and open our awareness, so using our senses like we did all this week, right? We focused on one sense each day, but when we're in nature, we're using our different senses, right? Like you might kind of tap into your hearing and then tap into your sense of smell and touch something and look for textures, but opening that awareness of that nature that's around you. And the thing I like to do when I go out into a natural space is like pay attention to what jumps out at me, like calls my attention, right? Or is calling to me, or is highlighted, right, in the whole background of green or brown or blue, whatever you're looking at. And then moving in closer if it's something that you can move closer to, and then again scanning with your senses with intention. And then if you have your nature journal, I like to do contour drawings, and we'll do some of that in a few minutes. But, a contour drawing helps me to see, like to visually see and hone that awareness of the thing that I'm looking at. And I make notes of like, what is it that I'm noticing? Do I have any questions about it? What am I wondering? Right? These usual nature journal-y, process, right? So noticing and what you're wondering, what questions that arise. And I always like to put in like, how do I feel in this space? Like, how do I feel right now? And sometimes it's a contrast to how I felt moments before I got to nature, right? Maybe that's the feeling that's important, right? I was feeling stressed before I did this, and now I'm like, I'm slowing my breath. I'm feeling, feeling calmer. I'm seeing the green around me. I'm smelling things, and just noticing how your body changes, how your body responds to being in nature. So this is one example here of a day that I went for a walk in a place I go all the time. I take my dog for a walk, and I always have my nature journal because you never know when you want to journal something. And so I have a shoulder bag a messenger bag that I have. And that day was the sounds. I was in a little redwood forest patch, and all those colored bubbles were just like, I just was scribbling down the sounds of the birds that I was hearing, and with the words of what it sounded like, or little drawings and sketches. And then I just thought it'd be fun to make them like little speech bubbles. And then so I put them all on the page, and the color came later, but I was just kind of like really focusing on all my sense of hearing, because it was like audio candy, right? It was like really just wonderful and lively and lovely, and it filled me with joy. And then I sat down on a little bench there in the forest, and I just allowed myself to just be okay, like no rushing to be anywhere. Let me just be in this moment. And then I like to free write what I'm seeing, what I'm feeling. And as I do this, sometimes I have another awareness that I wouldn't have had if I was just rushing around. And I can't remember what this was. I think it was just the symphony of birds, the mosaic of colors, the feast for the senses, the smell of the wood chips. Yeah. So I just was really taking in with all my senses. So this is also bringing the heart into it, right? How do you feel in that space? Okay. So how do we sense with the heart? So there's a number of ways we can sense with the heart. One way is, we talked about like the emotions, and we gave some really wonderful examples of what emotions come up, but there's a range of emotions, right? A continuum, from, you could say, like really high vibrational, joyful feelings, to maybe ones that are lower and sluggish and darker feeling emotions too. So we're human, and we feel a whole range of it. And so if we're opening our heart to be in nature, we might feel those other feelings too. So what feeling or emotion comes up when you see a sky like this at sunset? When the sky is changing these rainbow hues, like minute by minute by minute, it's just changing. Like you might be filled with awe and wonder and joy, and just a sensing like the ephemeral quality, right? The ephemeral meaning short-lived quality of nature, and really like trying to soak in the moment and enjoying those special clouds, because they're never going to come back. Not in the same way. Like that photograph that's taken in my backyard, I'm never going to see those clouds and those colors in that arrangement ever again. And you might say, well, yeah, of course. But really, like if we take that moment and just soak it in and just say, this moment is precious, and how can I just soak it in? And without feeling like you have to draw everything, just be present and allow whatever feeling comes up to be there. So what kind of emotions arise when we're seeing nature? So let's say we're walking together in the redwood forest, which is common here in California, and we're walking beneath these tall trees, and we're looking up at the canopy, and the sunlight is filtering through the branches. What emotions arise? Imagine yourself walking through the forest. How do you feel? What does it remind you of? Then in contrast, how does it make you feel when you see this? A forest of burnt trees, a wildfire that come through, and what's left standing are charred remains of these old trees. They're not the same feelings as the ones that you might have felt in the first one, but these are still feelings nonetheless. And I think that, being able to express those in your journal and allowing those feelings to arise, let them be felt, then they can pass through us. And I think so many times we don't want to feel those less than pretty feelings. We block them or hide them away. But I find that in my journal, this is a wonderful place where I can connect to nature. Nature has healing potentials. And if I can look at something like this that makes me feel grief or sadness or just like I don't know, hopelessness, devastation, and I can draw that, and I can allow those feelings to arise. And when I allow those feelings to arise, then, and I just let them feel, they don't last very long. I think there's some statistics about, like, if you allow a feeling to be felt, it only lasts like 90 seconds or 60 seconds, and then it passes. So we can befriend those feelings. And then what's left is maybe we can look at that and say, this is devastating. However, I might look around and find signs of resilience, like it was mentioned earlier in the chat, resilience, nature's resilience. Where can I find that? And so I love listening to nature and allowing nature to share its wisdom with us in this way. So the range of emotions, this is just a short example. You don't have to write them all down, but you can imagine from love to joy, worrying, concern, grief, sadness, longing. Maybe there's frustration or anger at something that you saw. I remember seeing a bulldozer bulldozing these plants in this habitat. And I was there the day before and was lush and beautiful. The next day it was kind of raised, just bulldozed. It just was shocking to me. And I've since then visited and things are growing back, but it was still, the shock. And like, I was able to write down how I felt, and that helped me process what those feelings were, allow it to be felt, and then to also balance that with the positive things that I was seeing happening in that landscape over time. Maybe there's spaciousness and you feel like you can breathe, or feeling peaceful. So another way that you can sense with your heart might be it in the body. Right. Some people are able to tap into this a little bit easier than others. It just takes some practice. We can all do this. So you might be familiar with feelings in your body, like maybe you feel it in your chest, right? Maybe there's in your heart area a tightness or an expansion or a warmth, right? Or in your throat. Have you ever had a tightness in your throat before, right? Yeah, I mean, this may not be necessarily because of nature, but like, I'm just saying, like, we can be aware of those senses in our body or in our gut. How many of you have had fluttering stomach, butterflies in your stomach, right? Or like sick to your stomach, right? Something makes you feel sick to your stomach. Or maybe your head, you get a tingling, burning sensation, or maybe it's your skin. Maybe there's a coolness or a heat, or you have goosebumps. So these are all ways that our bodies are giving us signals, and we can use these senses to be aware of what is this thing in nature eliciting in me. What is it saying to me, right? Nature doesn't speak with our language, with our words, but we can sense nature through our heart and through our emotions in our body. All right. And so looking at a landscape like this, with big puffy cumulus clouds all in the distance, and foamy, frothy ocean with a rocky coastline, how does it feel in your body? Do you get a sense when you're out there imagining being at the beach, for those of you who have been at the beach? And if you've never been to the beach, might use your imagination, of like what you might hear and how that might make you feel. Maybe the smells that might come to your mind, or maybe the breeze or the sun or the wind. So a third way to sense through the heart is intuition. And this is, I'm describing this as an invisible sense. It's a knowing, or a thought, or an idea that just pops into your awareness. Maybe you've been out in nature and you've had this sense of like, oh, look under the tree, like look behind that boulder, right? And then you go and look behind the boulder and you discover something. Or maybe it's, just a thought of, I don't know, it reminds you of something, right? Well, those are different ways that we can sense through the heart and intuition. And this is just a muscle that is something that we can expand and work on. We might not, maybe we're not aware of that right now, but we all have that ability. And our indigenous caretakers of the earth were deeply attuned to nature's language, right? They understood the visuals and the sensations and the smells and the sights, because they depended on it for their livelihood and survival. But in the modern era, so many of us have lost that language of nature. But we can regain that innate ability through this attention that we're giving, intentional attention, and seeing with our heart. So this example was, these were redwood branches that were shadows cast on my page. There was I was sitting under a tree and the sunlight was casting the redwood shadows, and I scribbled the redwood branches. And as I was doing that, I thought, this is really fun. This is like, let's see, I think this is the one that the wind. Oh, I think I might have been getting frustrated. The shadows were moving because the wind was blowing. And for whatever reason, I was getting frustrated. And then I realized, just go with the flow. Just go with the flow. The idea of go with the flow came up. And let's see. Oh, and then that the wind and I co-created this beautiful page, and so if we are just open to receiving these ideas, thoughts, feelings that are always present, we're just really, I think, used to tuning them out. So if we start practicing listening to it, we might get some interesting conversations, so to speak, that go on with nature. Okay. And, we're all connected in nature. And I think those of us who are here for nature journaling really understand that, right? And we're seeing it as we observe nature. And nature is more similar to us than we think, right? We're the same building blocks, right? The atoms that are in all living things, we're all made of the same building blocks. Sometimes we have similar ways of being. Living things, we all consume, excrete, reproduce in some way, grow. We have seasons of birth, growth, death, or maybe there's seasons within a whole a lifetime, or daily seasons or monthly seasons. We all have some kind of structure. So for example, trees and humans, we both have a support structure, right? Trees have, their hard, the heartwood, the solid wood that's in the trunk and in the branches. We have our skeleton. We both have a circulatory system, right? To move nutrients. We respire. And we need food to grow. So we're not that different. We just, and if we kind of stop to think about it, we can find those connections. And so there's a lot that nature can reveal to us and show us if we're open to listening. And so, it's our forgotten connection. So we have an innate connection to nature, and we can remember through intentional attention and expanding our sensory awareness. And that's what we've been doing all week long. So another way that we might sense like using our heart and opening our mind too is, can you put yourself in the shoes of someone else? You know, imagine what it's like to become a frog, right? So just, you know, using your imagination, let's become this frog. We may not know anything about this frog, but let's imagine so we know some things about biology, right? About a frog, what it needs, where it might live. And maybe you don't know a whole lot. Maybe you know a lot, you know, maybe you are more well-versed, but wherever your knowledge is, start where you are with what you know about frogs. And then imagine if you were a frog, how would you move? Where would you move? Where do you think you might live? What kind of environment might you need? How would you seek shelter and find food? Right. And so this is another way that we can expand our awareness of the world around us. Right. I think I was going to go off to show. I'm going to stop my share. Were there any questions in the chat, Bethan or Karina?
There's no questions, but your meditation on the ways that we can connect with the heart is just it's divine. I love it. And that idea that we can put ourselves in the shoes of another being is so powerful. And I think that that is one way that we can begin to incorporate all this into our lives. And you know, when we feel it from someone else's perspective, then we're not going to go and, like you say, you saw this, you had some grief over some habitat being lost. We're not going to cut down someone else's habitat when we've walked in that frog's shoe for a little while. I think that's a really beautiful activity.
Yeah. So I hope that these, you know, are helpful. I want to share a few examples of some of my pages where I've brought, hopefully you can see the screen without obstruction. Okay. All right. So, you know, a nature journal page doesn't have to be meticulously drawn. It doesn't have to be artistic, right? I think we all kind of know that we have our own styles. If you want to draw something realistically with a lot of detail, that's perfectly fine. I personally don't like to do that. I like to spend more time just being in nature and using more of a loose style. So this is a contour drawing, which I'm sure all of you know, have seen me do or other people do, a contour drawing of these beautiful trees that I pulled over the side of the highway and tried to find this trail so I can be near these trees. So this is another intuitive thing. So as I was driving, I saw the trees and I got this feeling of, I need to be there. I need to get closer to those trees. And actually, I drove by the day before. I didn't have time. And it kept like the image of the trees kept popping into my mind throughout the day. And so I knew that I needed to go back. And when I went there, I stood by them and I did a contour drawing with like a continuous line, and they don't look exactly like the trees, but they capture the feeling and the essence of what's there. So this is how I love to bring like heart. I call it heart into my journal, is just capturing the essence of what I felt while I was there. And sometimes the heart connection comes out in words. So I might make a poem. Most of my poems are like freely written. So, you know, they're not the traditional certain number of certain number of syllables or rhyming or anything. So, you know, this one was like leaning, reaching, stretching, like they were frozen in mid-reach. 100 or more years, perhaps, thousands of weather events and storms and winds, dry sun, all the while rooted firmly in the earth, connecting the sky and the earth, also connecting with us through the air that we breathe. So when we open our heart to nature, we can bring our biological knowledge, our ecological knowledge, our nature knowledge into and kind of mixing it together and thinking about what's nature in this moment telling me. And to me, it was like, this is what came out, you know, it just felt just awe to be, these were like 60-foot trees or 80 feet, I wrote here 80 foot tall. So they could just be simple ways that you connect to nature with the heart. Maybe I often see abundance when I'm in nature, these were green beans in my garden, they were flourishing. There were so many green beans that I love. Harvesting is one of my favorite things to do in the garden. So as I'm picking the green beans, I'm thanking the plant. I'm so grateful. Like, I'm filled with joy. And the message I kept getting was like, this overflowing abundance, like showing me that life is abundant. I don't have to be afraid. There's enough of everything. And then sometimes I do a little green bean wisdom. So some feelings or thoughts that come, I just write in my journal. For this one, grow and reach for the sky. The sun nourishes all. Unfurl leaflets to create solar panels that shade the beans. Pick the beans frequently so that we produce more. Give away the bounty. It all cycles. It's meant to flow from sun to leaf, to flower, to bean, to you, and to others. So, just a few examples. I think you saw this one. Oh, this one is a fun one on the right-hand side. A hummingbird came while I was journaling, and it buzzed in front of me and stared at me for a couple of seconds. And while I was doing that, I was really busy. I think I was really busy journaling. I'm like, what are you doing? And later on, the image of the hummingbird came to my awareness, and I went back and I sketched this page, because as I was thinking about the hummingbird, what I received is, I'm not always this fast. I rest too. And this was so apropos because I was really busy. Even in my journaling, I was so busy that the hummingbird was trying to capture my attention. So I call this page Embrace the Slowdown. And so this is how I find that I receive wisdom from nature. And so, perhaps you might get these little things that you think, this is really silly, but it's not. That's a judgment, right? That there's this judgment in my head too. This one, I was eating celery, and this idea, and I thought the celery stalk was so beautiful. I wanted to nature journal it. And I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about the water that comes from the celery. It's recycled. It's like celery has brought water through its veins to me. So the lifeblood has come through celery, has come through clouds, has gone through other animals. And in that moment, it just really made me appreciate water. All right, so there's a few more pages, but I'll just oh, here's one. This one is the one that was on wanted to tell you. So the other day I was looking at a cosmos is a kind of flower that one of my favorites, and was growing in my garden. I have one plant, even though I planted like 8 of them. Snails or something was eating them. But on this day, I recognized that a lot of these flowers, the petals were eaten. They were fresh petals, but they were eaten. And it made me realize that oftentimes we focus on the pretty and beautiful. Like, my eye kept searching for that perfect flower to nature journal. And I realized most of the flowers were eaten. And I just stopped to draw that, the dried up flower, the eaten flower, and then different angles of the flower. And, as I was doing this, my appreciation for this plant was growing. My curiosity for what's happening to this flower was growing, so that I can pay attention to the bugs or whatever is going on with the flower, so that I can help it grow more. So if we sit with the flower right here, sit with the flower and listen for what it has to communicate. So that's actually one of my go-to cures for overwhelm is to go out into nature and sit with the flower. Just sit with the flower and then do a contour drawing. And I find that after I do that, I feel much better. Even if I don't solve the problem, it nourishes me. And I'll do one last one, example of grief. So this is this is a big cypress tree that was at my neighbor's yard. And when I went out to look out my window, they had already cut down half of it. And so this is the men that were climbing in the tree. And I was grief stricken because these are these two gigantic, beautiful trees that I love looking out from my backyard, and where I see the hawks and the crows hanging out. And I processed the shock that I was feeling and the sadness and just the like not understanding, like I don't understand what's happening. I just wanted to stop it. I knew that I couldn't. The trees was already cut down halfway. And as I was doing that, I was writing. And for me, I can receive intuitive, you could say intuitive communication or ideas or wisdom through nature. And what I received on this page was that there was not one tree, but two trees that I didn't realize until I was doing this, and that I was feeling like the tree was really sad that this was happening. But instead, the message I got was, don't be afraid. We will just return in another form, right? Where our limbs are being chopped and chipped unceremoniously, to me, feeling unceremoniously. And I was just really horrified by that. But then the tree was telling me, it's like, it's okay. We're going to come back. We're going to nourish the ground, and we're going to come back as something else. And reminding me that, appreciating what time you have, because you never know when your end is going to come. End in this form, right? So the end of the life for that tree in that form was that day, but that it can return in another form from its seeds, perhaps, or through nourishing the ground and helping other plants grow. So I just wanted to share with you some different ways that you can bring in, looking through your heart. And maybe it's just something leaps out at you, and it's like the rainbow colors of fall leaves that are on the sidewalk, and just I could not capture the beauty of the leaves, and it was frustrating to me because I was painting like, these are not the right colors. So I just decided I'm just going to do color dots, and just, to help me remember. So, whenever something just sparks some emotion, I think that is nature calling you to stop and pay attention. Right? We just never know and it's maybe not necessarily something that we learn from it, but I think that it's a mirror. Nature can be a mirror for us. I'll just say for me to look at my own actions in my life, like that hummingbird, right? Embrace the slowdown. That fast buzzing hummingbird, I notice it's like, my goodness, it's like it's flapping its wings so fast. And then knowing, like in my mind, I know about hummingbirds that they go into torpor, which is a slowed down metabolic time at nighttime, so they can survive the evening without eating. So even that little tiny bit of knowledge made me understand that, yeah, hummingbirds live a fast life, but they need rest. I am living a fast life at times, and I need rest. I have a big brain, so I think that I can keep going, but really I'm ignoring the signs of my body, right? Of maybe stress or feelings of overwhelm or anxiety. And so I find that nature is not only healing just from being out in nature and smelling nature and touching nature, but if I can open my heart and my mind to what other things am I learning from nature. So with that, I thought I would do a demo. I have a video that I took in my garden that I thought I'd show, and then we'd journal together, and then we kind of tune into like what kind of feelings and what kind of heartfelt characteristics is another thing too, like, courage and resilience. I think resilience was said earlier, that we see in nature, and that stimulates our memory. Okay, I'm going to find this video. And then I don't know if you have any questions, you can pop them in the chat or comments. And then Bethan and Karina will be there to moderate.
There is a question. Do you want to take it now, or would you like to take it after
Sure.
the demo?
Yeah, I can take that question.
Val was wondering, do you separate times for nature journaling about the heart and journaling for science and wonder and questions? Or so are there different times to differentiate what you want to accomplish with your journaling?
That is a really good question. I don't. The way that I use my nature journal is anything. anything with nature. I don't work as a research scientist anymore, but when I was doing science, we kind of like are forced to like turn off that emotional part of us, which is like taking part of our brain really and just like kind of divorcing ourselves from emotion. But if I was collecting data for research, right, I probably would still collect what am I all feeling, but that feeling part isn't going to go into the data, but I might still be collecting it in my journal. And this is why I wanted to share that, like, you can still be a scientist and you can have.
Melinda, you seem to have frozen my
I'm
phone.
back.
There you are.
Sorry, I don't know what happened. Thanks for waiting. Okay, so I took a video this spring that I wanted to share with you, and I'm going to share my screen in a way that you'll be able to see my my journal page, and just let me know if any part of the video or the screen is not showing. I'm going to share it right now. Let's see, share desktop. Okay. All right, so I'll play this video and we can imagine that we are together. I don't know if I can make this bigger. That might be as big as I can get it. So we'll just watch. It's 46 seconds. So we'll just watch it and then we'll go back and then we'll. Oh, hold on one. I need to share the sound. Optimize our video clips. Okay. All right. All right. So this is a cherry. This is a cherry tree. I can't remember. I think this might have been an apricot tree that I saw in my mom's yard, and I wanted to share this with you because I thought it was so pretty. So I might, if I was out nature journaling, I might stand and enjoy this tree and wait for maybe some part of it to jump out at me. And a couple of the things that I wanted to note was just the branches and the way the branches looked. And this is how I might nature journal something. And we'll just put today's date because I think this video was taken like a month ago, but we'll put today's date. It's June 7th here. I think this is a convention from my being a scientist, is always putting the date and time and location of wherever I'm nature journaling, because it's not only is it just a habit from my scientific background, but also it helps with understanding nature and learning about nature over time. So maybe I don't know when the apricot tree blooms, but if I put the date today, and we'll just put International Nature Journaling Week, and this is a video from spring. I'll just put on there so I don't think that it's actually blooming right now. That way I can learn more intimately from personal experience about what's happening. So I think I'm gonna draw the branch, and I'm gonna show you how I would do this in a simple way so that I can spend more time observing and just being with nature. So I'm going to do like a contour drawing, which is just I'm looking at this top branch. I'm going to draw that, and then I'm going to not worry about getting everything perfect, but I just want to show, you can do this along with me, Like this shows the density of flowers and where they're spaced and what size they are relative to this, to the rest of the plant, or, to the stem. So I can tell by, let's see, there's another flower here, that it's kind of sparse. Maybe it's fuller down here. And these little nubby things that are sticking out. And that might be the branch. And then I'll do the second branch next to it too. Here's another flower. So it's okay to be scribbly and messy, because the purpose for this is just to show like what it looked like when I was looking up at the tree. And these are buds right here. So I'm noticing there's lots of buds. So, I'm doing my noticing and wondering, look at all these buds here, lots of buds. So that's going to bloom out later. And then it makes me wonder, well, like, is there an order to how the flowers choose to bloom? Like some flowers, they always bloom from the bottom up. Some might bloom from the inside out. This one, I'm not sure, how the order works. So here's a couple branches. And so that didn't take too much time. And this way I can say, here's some buds. And as I'm noticing and wondering, I'm also feeling something. And maybe you are too. And if you are feeling something, write that down in your journal. Like write down, what it is that you're noticing. I'm noticing lots of buds here. Open blooms. I also love this state. My favorite state, meaning there's like half buds and half flowers. There's something about that makes me feel there's like the promise, right? Like the promise of more buds. It's not over yet, but there's enough that's like it's showy and beautiful. All right, we'll move on a little bit. Oh, look at the bees. So I might draw some of the bees on here too. All right, here's bees flying. And I put the little motion lines to show the bees buzzing its wings. And I might put more right here. I might say bees buzzing. Ooh, this idea just came to me. Kissing the flowers. I don't know if you can, hopefully you can hear the things that are going on, but I'm hearing the mockingbird. So mockingbird serenade. And I'm going to focus on these little cluster of flowers here. So again, this is going to do a loose sketch. And noticing there's 5 kind of roundish flowers, and there's lots of these little stamen in the middle. If you don't know the name, that's okay too. You can say the pollen thingies. Noticing this big bud, and this part is pink. I didn't know that about this flower. Pink. Sepals, 5 white petals. So as I'm kind of noticing and using this analytical part of my mind of like counting and describing and drawing, I'm also kind of opening my heart and saying, okay, what am I also feeling about this? Or am I feeling anything about this? Sometimes maybe I'm too busy and rushing around that I'm not really attuned to what nature is trying to speak to me, like that hummingbird, and maybe it'll come later. So here's the white petals, and maybe because it's white on white, maybe I'm just gonna, I don't know, I just feel like maybe give it a little bit of a background so that the white stands out. Or you could do that with a watercolor or color pencil. Okay. All right, here's another part of the flower that I was interested in. Oh yeah, this is a big, fat, plump bud ready to open. And this is the flower from the side with, you could see the sepals here, which is covering the flower bud before it opens. And this burst of leaves, to call them leaf bursts, where a bud opens and a whole bunch of leaves emerge. They're not quite open yet, but they're going to. All right, and let's see, I'm gonna just look at the chat here. Okay, let me stop my share so I can see everybody. Okay, so did everyone follow along to do this sketching and taking notes of your journaling, what you noticed and what you wondered, and maybe something about, yeah, I see a thumbs up. Maybe what came up for you, with your heart? Did anyone have any maybe words or phrases or ideas? Did it remind you of something? Did a thought come up? Sometimes an idea might come up, and maybe it didn't, and that's okay too. Those of you who know fruit trees, maybe you remember the smell of blossoms, what that smells like, what that makes you feel when you walk out there, and the smell of all of the blossoms wafting into your nose. How does that feel? Are you in an anticipation of the fruits that will soon follow in the next couple of months? Do you get a vision of what that fruit looks like when you're waiting? Yeah, if anyone wants to share, I'll give you just a couple minutes here to kind of maybe wrap up your thoughts that you have about any feelings or thoughts or ideas that came. Let's see. Okay, Deborah says she felt hopeful. Yeah, I love that, right? The buds and the leaves. Bethan said it was really calming. And Deborah said it reminded me of a fruit tree I've had for 20 years. Yeah. Melissa is noting the bird songs and the budding fruit trees, the season, the freshness of the day, and the bees buzzing. I don't know if it was morning, actually. Let's see, the sun. No, it was actually the sun is on the other side. It was the afternoon. Yeah. Jill says the quick process felt very freeing and relaxing. Yeah. So here's my tip. And this has really calmed my inner critic because I have a loud one. I don't know about you, but doing contour drawings helps calm me and keep that inner critic, that part of my brain that's judging my drawing, to keep that voice at bay so that I can be present with nature. And I've discovered that for me, doing the contour drawings and allowing myself to be messy and loose, because the goal for me in nature journaling is not to make a photographic representation of what I'm seeing. Like if I was an illustrator and someone was paying me to draw, a perfectly painted flower blossom, then that would be a totally different thing. But this is really it's actually expanding my language with nature. Maybe we can put it that way, right? Like we're becoming more fluid or fluent in the language of nature through nature journaling. Right? We're tapping in, we're starting where we are with our language, we're developing vocabulary, right? Ways to kind of elicit those ideas and being in touch with that in our own way. And so that becomes, a really useful tool. And for me, it's just about that being present and being calm and relaxing. The aesthetic color palette of the flower. I know, isn't that beautiful? I love that. It's a very peaceful color, that pale pink. Valerie says it always thinks about cherry trees being given to US from Japan. Yeah, and Debbie is feeling that everything, flowers, birds, beads, buds, were all in their rightful time and place and felt happy and content. Yeah, so, we can use our kind of analytical part of our mind, right? When we're out with nature journaling, we're observing, we're recording, we're counting. And so the proportion of which your time is spent doing that more heady stuff with more open-hearted stuff is totally up to you, right? If you want to be like, oh no, I actually really want to track how fast these leaves grow, then that's a totally different thing, right? You're going to track, okay, every day I'm going to measure the leaves, I'm going to measure, the distance or whatever. You can do that and have a graph and a data table, and you're learning something about it. And that's wonderful. You can also, have a feeling about that growth of the trees and incorporate that. Oh, Linda says, I feel my grandma's hug and love from 30 years ago. Yeah. That's beautiful. Yes. So I think I am going to stop there. We went a little over an hour. I really don't know when we were going to end, but I think that this is a good kind of overview of how I am looking at nature through the lens of the heart and expanding my language with nature. So I hope that this was helpful or enjoyable for all of you. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to take any questions or comments, or if anyone wants to share maybe something that they've discovered about nature this week with your heart, I'm here and happy to hear.
Melinda, there's a few comments coming in, just love for you in the chat. But I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you so much. That was so delightful. And I love the way you see the world. I love that you have a science background and you bring art and heart to that. And it was really nice to have those ways that we can tap into connecting with nature through the heart, really simple ways that can bring joy and calm, and a way to dial down the stress of busy lives. And I just think you're amazing. So thank you so much for your workshop today.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I also want to say that because all of these days are available to us to review the video at any time, I invite you to, come back during the year. Come back when you need a pick me up or, a jump start into nature journaling. Come back and check out the videos, even like the short introductory ones. Bethan did a beautiful job at introducing each sense and, got us thinking about it in different ways. And the international people that came and shared, I think that, instead of a one-time thing, let's go back and look at last year or the year before. It's there for all of us. And I lead a monthly nature journal club. And I was telling Bethan that I think that I might revisit this year's themes, maybe one of the days we'll just all go and watch the video on our own time, and then we come and share about like what was it about the aroma sense, for example, that we're discovering in our nature, because there's a deepening of the knowledge. It's not just, yeah, I know how to smell things, I've got it, or I know how to journal the smelly things, but it's this ever increasing enriching connection to nature. And so that when we're discombobulated with our non-natural lifestyles inside with technology, we can step back out into that nourishing place, and that we get replenished quicker, right? Because we're in that practice. So hopefully that is something that is useful to everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you, Melinda, and thank you everyone for being here and being part of International Nature Journaling Week. It's the end now, but it really is the beginning, because it's just, as Melinda says, this little taster of inspiration that sends us outside, out into the world, out into exploring our curiosity, our love, and our connection with nature. So thank you, everybody. It's been an amazing time together, and I really appreciate you all for being here. Thank you.
And again, one last plug for International Nature Journaling Week. I'll have Karina put the link in there. If you are able to make a contribution now or later in the year or anytime, you can always find that on the website or go to the link. And we appreciate all of your support so that we can continue having this nourish everybody and reach more people around the world.
Lovely. Thank you, everyone. Have a beautiful afternoon, evening, sleep, day. For me, the day's just starting, but for many of you, the day is finishing. Take good care, and we'll see you really, really soon. Thank you, Melinda. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks,
Thank you
Serena.
so much.